Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 606, written by CarrigFrizzWarrior, when one step equals thousands. I experienced a time glitch about 5 years ago, and I'm still trying to figure out if there's a rational explanation. At the time, I was working in an office in Cork city centre, and the car park I used was over a kilometer away. There were a few different routes from the office to the car park, but it was all uphill on the way back to the car. If I took the shortest route and really rushed, practically ran, on a nice day, it would take at least 9 minutes. If I walked at my usual pace, it would take up to 14 minutes as there are several roads that need to be crossed. The day in question, I left the office along with 3 of my work colleagues. We left at 5 p.m. I checked with the others later, and yes, we left at exactly 5 p.m. The 4 of us walked part of the way together, and then the other 3 branched off as they used another nearer and more expensive car park. At the time, I used to walk to the car park to practice mindfulness. I tuned into my surroundings, listened to the sounds, looked at the people, experienced being in the moment, etc., etc. I remember climbing the steep stone steps on Kaiser's Quay beside Elizabeth Fort, and the next thing I was aware of was rounding the corner onto Tower Street. I got into my car totally confused. There was a big gap on my route. I got into my car, and the time in my car was showing as 5:07. Same on my watch. I turned on the car radio. Time check announced 7 minutes past 5. I could not have gotten there that fast, particularly as the first part of the walk included chatting with 3 work colleagues slowly. I racked my memory for the walk to the car, and there's a huge gap. I have no memory at all of walking along several of the streets. What is particularly strange is that one of my neighbors works in a dentist surgery along the route, and I would have usually waved in the window to her as I passed, so I would always look to see if she was still working. But I have no memory whatsoever of this section of the route. I would also add that Cork City is pretty old, and the area I was walking in is one of the oldest sections. Did I walk into some time loop and get spat out in a different place? I have thought about this over and over, but I cannot explain it. Case notes, file number 606. Right, we can eliminate a few things commonly associated with time glitches. Aliens? Sadly, highly unlikely, given the packed density of a city combined with it only being 5 p.m. We can also eliminate a mind glitch, like spacing out, suddenly sleepwalking, or sleep running, because you got to your destination far faster than should be possible, even if you ran at top speed, because the first half of the walk you were walking slowly with your coworkers. The only mundane method to cover that distance would be in a vehicle, but why would someone pick you up of which you have no memory? Maybe hypnotism? There have been a few accounts of people being hypnotized suddenly, often by old ladies, but that doesn't quite fit right. What's the motive here? So the only explanation that fits in my mind is a space-time portal. This usually seems to happen to drivers, one instant at point A, then at point B miles away. I suppose there's no reason it couldn't happen to someone just walking along too. That must be what happened. It does raise another question though. Why would a random space-time portal take you exactly where you needed to be? Why not 1,000 miles away in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, for instance? Or hell, under the ocean itself, instantly crushing you from the pressure? Due to how these portals seem to behave, I'm guessing they aren't random. They seem to be calibrated exactly so you appear still on the surface of the planet and not too far away. Or maybe that's survivorship bias? Maybe they are random and people are literally walking or driving to their deaths all the time as a result. And those are more missing 411 persons reports instead of glitch in the Matrix stories. Case file number 607, written by The Third Heat 369. A Star-Spangled Glitch. It was July 4th, 2011, and obviously in the US, that's Independence Day. So I got together with a group of friends to go out. I had an early shift the following day, so I decided I shouldn't drink. The night was fun. But at around 8, I decided I should try to get back to my side of town before the fireworks started, because I figured traffic and drunk driving would get worse if I stayed at my friend's house until after the fireworks. So I'm driving up this narrow side street going up towards my house. But this side street is one many of the locals use to get from my neighborhood to our south side, which is a major drinking and partying hotspot. Anyway, I had on this very distinctive and obnoxious American flag shirt where the body's part had red and white stripes and the arms were blue with white stars. I bought the shirt from a thrift store and have never seen anyone wear something similar, but who knows. Anyway, as I'm driving down the street, I see what looks like a woman with a similar shirt as mine, passed out, face down on the sidewalk. Like she looked like something was very seriously wrong too, as if she face planted into the ground or something. So I decided to pull over and go check on her, but because the street is so narrow, you can't just double park. You have to go and find a place to pull over. I park down the block and go back to help this lady. I have been down this road many times throughout my life, so I know the landmarks well, and I knew exactly where she had been laying. Also, even though I had to park down the street, I literally ran back to her. It couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 minutes max. I get to where I knew I saw her, and there's nothing. No sign of anyone, no one walking down the street or anything. It was so bizarre, and I got chills. I decided to drop it and go back to my car. As I'm getting ready to cross the street again, this car comes speeding up the street towards me, and before I could even think, it crashes smack into the retaining wall right by where I was just standing literally seconds before. Then this nutjob backs out and drives off. So one of the neighbors came out and we called the police, and I helped file a police report and then went home. When I got home, I called my mom to tell her about what had happened because I was still so shaken up. And she's the one who started putting things together and made me really think about this as if it's a glitch in the Matrix. She felt like I had somehow witnessed some alternate reality where I saw myself dead on the sidewalk, because in that reality, maybe a car struck me earlier than the car that arrived in this dimension. I don't know. I didn't really know what to make of it then, and I suppose I still don't. But coming here on Reddit today makes me think that maybe it was just another glitch in the Matrix. Bonus file. Written by zuzuofthewolves, in the root of horror. In September, my partner and I signed the lease on a dream apartment. I was ridiculously excited and kept telling everyone I knew all about it, to the point where I was probably actually pretty annoying. One day, a friend of mine came to visit me at work, and of course I told her the news of our new place. She asked me where it was, and when I told her the location, she turned pale and seemed uncomfortable at best and flat out scared at worst. She asked to see a picture of the inside, and when I showed her, she let out a long sigh of relief, then proceeded to tell me one of the creepiest stories I've ever heard. It turns out that about 5 years ago, she had lived in the house directly next to mine with her sister and boyfriend. Starting almost immediately when they moved in, they began hearing noises out in the kitchen area at night when they were sleeping, and occasionally woke up to open cabinets or kitchen tools scattered around. Eventually, they started hearing what sounded like kids talking in low voices in the kitchen at night, occasionally crying, and crashes that sounded far off, but still somewhere in the house. Around this time, my friend and her sister started to fight a lot and said that they had both been feeling extremely irritable about everything. Their house was broken into while they were all at work one night, but nothing was stolen except some cheap costume jewelry. There was cash, valuable jewelry, and designer clothing in the house, but it was all left untouched. Later in the same month, they received a visit from the cops, who said a neighbor had called about screaming and crying coming from the house, and they had reported that they left their kids there alone when they went out. Only one problem: they didn't have kids. The cops were called a few other times and finally got a search warrant, and somehow ended up finding a trapdoor under the kitchen window area that was covered in a layer of leaves and dirt. They found out that it was the remnants of a very, very old root cellar. I live in one of the oldest cities in America by European colonizer standards, and much of the structures are built on top of older structures. Apparently, one thing led to another in the search down there. and the police recovered some very old skeletal remains of 2 children. Nobody seemed to know if the skeletons or the root cellar were there first. During all of this, my friend and her sister broke their lease and moved out of there ASAP, as they were terrified to be there any longer in the presence of such tragedy. I went through with my lease and I live in the building next door to where all this happened. My apartment is an old adobe market that was converted into an apartment in the 70s, and it's been an absolute dream to live in. No scary vibes or noises at all. The couple who lived in that house now seem pretty nice and keep to themselves. We all have high privacy walls and coyote fences, and I feel tempted to see if they know all about this, but I'm afraid it might make them uncomfortable if I approach them about it.